I welcome on behalf of the Minister for Finance the opportunity to discuss the private member's motion tabled by the Rural Independent Group. I move the amendment. Apologies. Amongst other things, on behalf of the Government to scrap the carbon tax in its entirety. The Government proposes to reject this motion. Carbon tax is a key pillar underpinning the Government's climate action plan to halve emissions by 2030 and reach net zero no later than 2050. A further key component of the Government's carbon taxation policy is the use of revenues raised from these rate increases to fund important just transition measures. It is important to note that a significant portion of carbon tax revenue is allocated for expenditure on targeted welfare measures and energy efficiency measures, which not only support the most vulnerable households in society, but also in the long term provide support against fuel price impacts by reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. The motion calls on the Government to recognise that a climate change strategy should harness the full potential of new and emerging technologies. This is precisely what the Government is trying to achieve through the use of carbon tax funds, particularly in retrofitting and new agricultural policies. The motion also asks for a financial impact analysis on households and society. This has already been done. Analysis undertaken by Switch, the ASRI tax and benefit model to simulate the impact of the carbon tax increase and the compensatory welfare package has confirmed that the net impact of the combined measures is progressive. Households in the bottom 4 income deciles will see all the cost of the carbon tax increase offset, with the bottom 3 deciles being better off as a result of these measures. This is the financial impact. In the long run, the best way to protect Ireland from the impact of international fossil fuel prices is to reduce our dependence on them. We will achieve this through the progressive decarbonisation of Irish society and through the steps that will be taken to meet Government's commitment to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The context for the recent conversations we are having on carbon tax is the pressure being brought about by the global rise in fuel costs. More recently, as a result of the ongoing war in Ukraine and Russia's role in global energy supply, oil and gas prices have further risen, and these increases will feed into higher inflation over the coming months. The energy market has been impacted by these global trends across the board, and the fossil fuels we rely on for home heating have been subject to significant price increases. The final retail price of fuel is determined by a number of factors, including the cost of production, distribution, global market factors, international exchange rates, taxation, wholesale market contracts, as well as individual retail pricing policies. In this context, it should be noted that changes to carbon tax rates are only having a relatively small impact on current energy prices. For instance, the budget 2022 carbon tax increase, which came into effect in October last year, added approximately 2 cents per litre in tax to petrol and diesel. The increase in rates for home heating fuels such as kerosene, gas and solid fuels was delayed until the 1st of May 2022 to mitigate against impacts during the winter heating season. The May 22 increase will add approximately €21.56 to a 1,000 litre fill of kerosene. It is clear, therefore, that carbon tax is not the cause of the current energy price inflation. Taxation on energy products is not behind current price increases, and therefore removing the carbon tax would serve little purpose and have little effect in mitigating the cost of energy for consumers. It would, however, undermine the Government's climate strategy, and that is why we cannot support this motion. Let me now turn to the Government's response to the increase in energy prices. Last month, the Government brought a financial resolution into this House providing for excise duty decreases on mineral oil taxes with effect from the 10th of March. This provided a 20-cent reduction in the excise rate for petrol and a 15-cent reduction on auto diesel, with a proportionate 2-cent reduction for the excise on marked gas oil. These measures were VAT inclusive and set to last until the 31st of August 2022. This was estimated to cost €320 million. Last week it was announced that these measures would be extended and enhanced. We have taken the decision to extend these reductions until the 11th of October 2022. The Government is also providing for a further reduction in the excise rate on MGO, which amounts to a VAT-inclusive reduction of 3 cents effective from the 1st of May until the 11th of October. The excise reduction extension and the further reduction in the rate applied to MGO will cost an estimated additional €97 million. The Government is also taking action beyond auto fuels. From the 1st of May and effective until the 31st of October, we are also providing for a reduction in the rate of VAT on the supply of gas and electricity from 13.5% to 9%, resulting in estimated annual savings of €49 on gas and €69 on electricity bills for households. This will more than offset the May the 1st increase in carbon tax. The VAT reduction will cost an estimated €46 million. These tax reductions strike the balance between passing a significant benefit to consumers while managing the tax base and respecting the constraints of the energy tax and VAT directives. In terms of revenue impacts, the combined impact of the fuel tax reductions alone is €436 million. The Government believes that this represents a significant response by it to tackling the unprecedented challenge which we are currently facing. But this is not all the Government is doing. These measures come in addition to the measures in Budget 2022 and the February package of measures to alleviate the impact of increased cost of living on households. In this regard, Budget 2022 included a personal income tax package worth €520 million for this year, alongside a social welfare package of over €550 million, whilst the February additional package of measures made changes to the value of over €500 million that included an increase in the energy credit to €200, including VAT, estimated to impact just over 2 million households, a lump sum payment of €125 on fuel allowance, which was paid in early March to 390,000 recipients, and an additional €100 payment announced in April. A temporary reduction in fares of 20% from the end of April to the end of the year to reduce the burden on people returning to the workplace and people using public transport. This will impact approximately 800,000 daily users. A further reduction of the drug payment scheme to €80. This will benefit just over 70,000 families. The working family payment budget increase announced on Budget Day has been brought forward from June 1st to the 1st of April. Reduced caps for multiple children on school transport fees to €500 per family post-primary and €150 for primary school children. And a reduction in the public service obligation levy to zero by October 2022. As mentioned earlier, the evidence confirms that the measures taken by the Government to date are progressive. In this regard, recent analysis undertaken by the Department of Finance using Switch has confirmed that the suite of recently announced measures more than offset the carbon tax increases for all income deciles. The lump sum increase in the fuel allowance of €100, a cut in the VAT rate on gas and electricity from 13.5% to 9%, a reduction in the PSO levy of €58.57 annually, an extension of the cut in excise duty of 15 cents for diesel and 20 cents for petrol from the 31st of August to the Budget Day in October were included in the analysis. Additionally, the Government continues to drive public investment in energy efficiency with an overall investment of €267 million this year, €118 million of which is allocated to making homes of those at risk of energy poverty warmer, healthier and cheaper to heat. In response to increasing energy costs, new grant rates have been introduced that will cover approximately 80% of the typical cost of attic and wall insulation. These are very cost-effective upgrade measures that can be deployed rapidly and at scale this year. The typical cost savings from cavity wall insulation is €300 per year on a home heating bill. Cumulatively, the Government has spent approximately €2 billion on additional cost of living and welfare supports from Budget 2022 to present. In conclusion, the Government is very conscious of the negative impact that the rapid rise in consumer prices is having on society. We know things are difficult for many, and this is why the financial measures I have outlined here today have been introduced in Budget 22 and in the months since. The Government remains committed to its current policy of carbon taxation. The carbon tax is critical to reducing our dependence on fossil fuels and to ensuring a just transition to a decarbonised society. We therefore cannot support a proposal to scrap carbon tax. Doing so would not make a significant impact in the context of the current rise in prices, and instead would leave those who rely on the welfare support measures that are funded by the carbon tax worse off. It would also jeopardise the suite of measures which are central to our emissions reduction goals. The Government believes that this House should reject this private member's motion on the removal of the carbon tax and instead support the Government's counter-motion on this matter. Thank you.